Hey, everybody, welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, former college lacrosse player Alex Alonso joins the show. In high school, Alex was selected for the Blue Chip All-Star national teams in back-to-back seasons, and he helped lead Plant High School in Tampa, Florida, to a district and regional title. At Queen's University in Charlotte, he was a 5-year letterman and a ground ball specialist. And in 2021, Alex led the team with a 61.9 faceoff percentage. His brother, Pete Alonso, was a 4-time MLB All-Star and won the 2019 National League Rookie of the Year when he hit 53 home runs for the New York Mets. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, man. How are you doing today in sunny Florida?
Absolutely love it. Living the dream down here. It's nice to carve out a little slice of paradise.
I'm jealous. I love the beach.
It's always a good time. Really enjoy living right down the street from it. It's great for the weekends and unwinding a little bit after a long week.
Did you have any issues from any of the hurricanes?
We were pretty blessed. We're in a townhome and we're a little bit higher up than some other people, and it swung by and missed us a little bit south. So we're very fortunate, but a lot of people saw a lot of damage, and Tampa's still recovering. Unfortunate to see what happened, but I think a big positive out of this is seeing the helping nature and seeing Tampa kind of band together and unite as one and move forward through tragedy. And seeing good people help other good people is something that is fulfilling and it feeds the soul.
With all the coverage that it's gotten, was there a particular story of people helping people that stuck out to you?
I'd say a lot of it's personal. A lot of the specific stories around people helping people, there are a lot of stories of tragedy that I don't necessarily want to get super into, but whenever you speak with somebody that had something happen, every single one of them mentioned how surprised they were with how many people actually had their back when times are tough. And I think as individuals, we don't necessarily realize how many people are behind us and how many people are there to help bring us through tough times. Right? I mean, that's why we have people around us, is for fulfillment. And when times are tough, it's really surprising to see how many people rise to the occasion and help people they care about.
I always say the true test of a friend is when something is hard and who shows up. That's when you really know that those are the people you can cement in life.
Well, speaking of cement, that looks like it's about the only thing left there of Tropicana Field. Real question is what happens to our Tampa Bay Rays? I've heard some theories about them this year, and they're looking to be into a new stadium anyways. So I'm really curious to see what happens to the Rays and where they end up. They've needed to build a new stadium in Tampa for a real long time now. It's been something that the area has been crying out for to get them in downtown. I think they were trying to be central and give back to the St. Pete area with where they're currently at. Clearwater, St. Pete be more accessible to that area of the city, which is great. But there's so much development with downtown Tampa. I think being able to give back and be a part of that growth would be huge for that team.
I know you played lacrosse, but growing up, were you a baseball fan as well?
This is an interesting one. Pete and I both played lacrosse and baseball for pretty much our whole childhood. We were a very athletic family. Both my parents were college athletes. Pops played football. My mom played softball. My grandpa, Morgan, which is on my mother's side, he was a very big baseball fan. And then my grandpa Alonso played soccer. So I'd say the athletic, I don't want to call it a gene, but the interest in athletics runs really, really deep with the Alonso family. And growing up, it was interesting because our parents, something they didn't do is they didn't really push us into sports. We just gravitated towards it. Like when we both grew up, there were a couple of funny stories, but we would just throw things, right? We would just throw things. We would go to stores, and it's kind of funny, even to this day, if you walk around stores, if there's just a ball in a crate or something, still bounce it around a little bit and put it back. Maybe when we were younger, we may not have put it back. We would have thrown it around, slammed into each other, and started a wrestling match. But I don't know how to explain it, but it's interesting seeing just the raw interest from a young age in athletics and always playing something. Just walking around the house as a kid, there was always a ball that was getting kicked around, even though mom always said no sports in the house. We found a way to do it. And we turned things that weren't sports into sports. And it usually created a little bit of conflict. We were an extremely competitive household for no reason. And just that raw competition, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's just kind of how we grew up. And that was just what we enjoyed doing. We enjoy competing, we enjoy moving forward, and it's just kind of how we were raised. I don't know if that's something you see with any of your other guests or how common that is, but I mean, we were never pushed sports as kids. We just fell into it and loved it. My mom did everything. She didn't have any daughters, right? And she wanted daughters. And then it's kind of funny because she told us after, she's like, you know what? After you two, I'm not too upset. I'm actually really happy with how this one worked out. And what made her with daughters is we were running around the house and causing all sorts of havoc and creating problems for her that shouldn't have been there. But just two energetic little fellows running around causing mayhem. And we were a little bit big. We were those kids that we grew really quickly, really young, had to go around with birth certificates and everything to sporting events. So that was always hilarious. So we were too big, too young, and we were running around too much. So for my folks, especially my mom, I commend them for spending the time and effort to get Pete and I right. I'll forever be grateful to the childhood I had. It was amazing.
So I'm curious, what's a non-sport that you and your brother turned into a sport?
We both played lacrosse together. He actually got me into it because we were both into football around the same time. And then my mom kind of got us out of football because she saw people around our age starting to get hurt and have problems quickly. And she's like, look, you guys shouldn't do this. We wanted to play football. We like smacking into people, right? So the next best thing was lacrosse. We both picked up lacrosse around the same time instead of football. And we both played baseball and lacrosse. And Peter had more of an affinity towards baseball. I was actually pretty good at baseball when I was younger, but my thing is I didn't enjoy it. I don't know how to explain it, but I was more of a high energy guy, typical younger brother, and I just needed to run around. So I loved lacrosse and I was a midfielder, so I just ran all over the field and I loved it. But that's kind of where things split. It was interesting because once you get to high school, it's like, okay, both of these sports are in the same season. Which one are you going to play? And he went one way, I went another way. And well, Pete's still playing his career, but sports have done very well for us. It's given me the opportunity to get my master's degree. And if it weren't for my master's degree and being able to go down that route, I wouldn't have gotten a couple initial offers at really, really high end wealth management firms. And it gave me my intro into finance, breaking into the industry. I've always loved finance. That's something that has always been a passion of mine. I've loved numbers. I realized my passion for being able to use that knowledge and apply it to actual humans and being able to help people individually. So if it weren't for sports, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't have been able to get early experience. I wouldn't have been able to move forward and get an education. I was a pretty bright kid and I was doing pretty well, but I'm not daft to the point where if I'm applying to a grad school, it's a lot easier to get into a grad school if you're going to play sports there, especially immediately after you finish your undergrad. I see some of my other buddies doing similar things, and it's a whole process to get in, and it's hard to do. I want to say that I was lucky, but I literally gave 4 teeth for my sport and for my school and for my team. So I don't know how much luck that is, but so that's that, and that's kind of where I am today and where things went growing up. It's interesting to have this meditation of where you come from and all of that. Probably
Growing
didn't
up,
answer your question.
that's all right. Growing up, let's say away from the athletic realm, is there a favorite story you have with your brother and your family?
Definitely. Our childhoods were very busy and we were always doing something, whether it was athletic or my father was an executive at a staffing company, which took a tremendous amount of time and he'd get home late. But one thing about him is he would never miss a sports game. I'd say the number one memory that I have is we took a family vacation to Alaska together and there was no phones. We're in the middle of nowhere, just fishing for salmon. And it was very nice to just be able to relax and spend time kind of in raw nature with family. Having no distractions when distractions are common and being able to really boil everything down and just be able to spend time together as a family, fish, look at otters. That's a memory, and that's something that I'd say is a favorite slice of time that I've had with my family, which is silly, but we were an all year round athletic family. If it wasn't athletic, it was academics or it was something. We were always just disgustingly busy. And it wasn't because we had to be, it was because we loved to be. So that was with all of us together, I'd say spending time in the elements, just being a family and being all together, no distractions, nobody interrupting. I think that's something, especially these days, because that's something I don't think a lot of people realize what happens when you kind of get put onto a national stage. And especially with Pete being high achieving, not just being in the league, but very big brand name for one of the largest markets in the US, there comes a lot of, I'll say, travel, there comes a lot of obligations with that. And with that, I have my career where I'm on the road all the time too, right? And even when I was in college, I wasn't able to travel. It feels nice to be out of school and no longer an athlete and have the freedom. Normally, I would be in season. I find myself saying, oh, if I was in season, I wouldn't be able to do this. And then I'm doing it now. It's kind of interesting having all of that. But I'd say spending time in the wilderness, just doing nothing. Sometimes doing nothing is doing the most.
There are times where I put down the phone, I put down the computer, and whatever it is, it could be watch TV, think about something, but that quiet time I think is an incredibly important way for a mental reset.
Of course. And I mean, that's something that everyone knows, but nobody does.
It's the I'm gonna do it, and then one thing comes up, another thing comes up, and it never gets done, right?
And that's something else too. I think a lot of people, and especially athletes, people neglect taking care of themselves. I think a lot of, I'd say, high achievers or just people in general, it's everyone focuses on what's around them and what they need to do next, but nobody really focuses on how they can take care of themselves to achieve what they need to achieve. It's that mental piece and mental clarity. And I think it goes a lot longer. And especially in athletics, right? For a lot of people that have clouded minds, when I was an athlete, my mentality was everything. One time there was a pretty intense situation I was put in a game. And I think I was a little bit younger coming in, just dipping my toe in the water of being a starter and right at the cusp there. And I was standing in the middle of the field. Stadium was lighting up because it was a big moment. And I think we might have been in overtime or something. And I looked at the sidelines, I stepped, experienced the moment. And then I don't know what it was, something caught my eye from the woods. And I looked over, and I think a lot of athletes you'll find are very interestingly spiritual as well. I saw a deer running by, and it made me think of my grandpa Morgan. He lived off the land. He caught, hunted for all of his food, made his own jelly, brewed his own beer, and he was a farmer, a countryman in Ohio. And me seeing that deer, there was just one. It was running. I don't know why it was there. Why was it even running? There's no reason. It's just woods back there. And I just see a flash of a deer running, and I'm like, my grandpa's here. And I was comfortable in that moment. And that comfort, I don't know if we ended up winning the game or not, but I did my job in overtime. It's really weird to think about that, how important that mental clarity and that taking a second is for people to take care of what's in front of them.
And I think when it comes to athletes, in a lot of ways, it's always about, especially when it's in high school and college, of getting to that next level. How am I going to get from high school to college? How am I going to get from college to pro? And kind of what you just alluded to of taking that step back, kind of realizing the moment in and of itself, whatever moment it is, and just taking that breath, that mental reset is crucial.
When I first started out getting some PT in college, and I was kind of thrown into a couple situations I wasn't ready for yet. When that happened, mentally, I was really skitzed out. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm too young for this. I just switched positions. I'm doing a job I'm not used to doing. But Pete's always been there for me. He's been a phenomenal older brother. As an athlete and in life, I think he provides amazing advice. Sometimes you kind of just need that support to just shake you and nudge you in the right direction. He's like, so what if you lose? There's going to be another opportunity. He's like, are you putting your extra hours in? I'm like, yeah. Are you doing all of this, that, or the other in the margin? I'm like, yeah. He's like, there's going to be another opportunity if you lose. Trust your training. I mean, you see Pete before he steps in the box every time. He sits there, looks at his bat, takes a deep breath, and then he steps in the box. Me, before I took faceoffs. He told me to do this, and I did it throughout my whole career because it worked. for the mental clarity. Just take a deep breath, in, out, go do your job. And I find myself even doing that in life. If I'm having a tough conversation with someone, if I need to handle something, if I am going to go do public speaking for work, or if I'm going to do something that puts me out of my comfort zone and I'm not feeling centered, deep breath. And being grounded is huge.
In terms of taking that deep breath, when you do something like public speaking now, how does that enable you to actually just calm your nerves and really focus? Because sometimes, at least for me, I can take a deep breath and it doesn't always work. Is there like a particular way that you do it each and every time that you say, okay, I'm now mentally focused?
I don't know how to explain it. I mean, you just take the breath, you think about what you need to do while you're taking the breath, and you visualize it. And that visualization is probably lifting 90% of the weight. Before I public speak, if I'm doing something like that, to apply it to, I'd say, more regular people stuff. Take a breath, in, out. What is the positive result of this? What is the best case scenario? What does that look like? And how do I get there? This is what I have to do. Okay, time to get to work. It's a mental preparation. And if you're just breathing heavy and you're kind of lost in the moment, thinking about things going correctly and how they go correctly, what you need to do, whether it's what you need to say, different things you need to posture, or even if it's sports performance, right? How's my body going to move? What's that going to feel like? There's something called mind-body connection that's huge, and people talk about it all the time in weight training. It goes a lot deeper than just weight training. It goes with what you do when you're playing. A lot of athletes can probably relate to this. You can imagine how your body feels when you do certain things before you do it, because you've done it so many times. And if you walk yourself through it, right, it's like, okay, I'm making my first move. What does that feel like? I can reference like different results and what that feels like. So when you're trying to react quickly in a sports environment, on the very top of mind with face-offs, with what I did, it's very split-second reaction. Everything you do is how quickly, not just you react the first time, but the second time and the third time. And it's crazy that all of this can happen in a breath. But if you take that breath and you think, what does this feel like in my body for this to happen? Okay, if this, then that. What does this feel like in your mind and your body? I know I'm getting really holistic with you right now, but it's almost prompting yourself. You know, when you study before a test, and it's not always, okay, I'm going to be remembering all of these new things. When you're on the field, it's not the time to be making adjustments. It's the same thing with studying. It's about refreshing what you already know and having all of that top of mind, top of body, and being able and ready to execute. So it's not just like that on the field. It's like that in real life with work and with other areas of life. It's a one-to-one transition.
If one thinks about it, I'd say you can make the same comparison with driving each and every day.
Definitely. It's the same thing. You drive a certain road so many times, you know how your body moves when you're driving that road. It's like there's a pothole here. It's very physical, and having that mind-body connection and then connecting that to the spiritual clarity piece, it allows you to operate efficiently and be successful. I mean, you see it in sports all the time. You see people when the moment gets too big for them. You see people not having that ability to press the reset button and go do what they know how to do. Let's say I was watching college football. If someone misses a big kick, you can look at the kicker, see how they're posturing, see what their face is doing, see what they do in their routine before the kick. You know they're going to miss the kick, or you know they're going to make it. You know when people are comfortable, you know when they're operating optimally. And if they are, they're going to go do their job. And if they don't, and if they mess up, that happens. They're going to do it the next time.
Because I do public speaking as well, and there's always at some point a weird question that's asked. When you've done it, what's a strange question that you weren't expecting that you've been asked while doing it?
Man, I get asked so many questions. I don't have a specific reference that threw me off, but I think here's a good one. I think you just asked me one. Put me on the spot. I like that. One thing is just taking a breath, pausing for a moment, and then answering the question. It's kind of like any unexpected road bump. Just be like, oh, they just added this to the road. That's weird. It's a lot about how you handle things. It's that process. Taking a second, slowing down, and then going from there. That's the process. So, Rob, the next time that somebody asks me a question that I don't know, like this one, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to lob you a text, and that's how it's going to roll.
Growing up, did you ever see a sports psychologist? Because the mental side of this for you, whether we're talking real life public speaking or your athletic career, you seem to be really in tune with your mind.
I've never seen a sports psychologist. I've heard a lot of people talk about them, but it's all trial and error. And then years playing sports, I don't know how to explain it. I've just been playing sports all my life, and I still play sports, right? Even to this day, but not my profession anymore. But that's kind of how some people learn it. But this sports psychology piece, if anybody listening were to take anything, I think the sports psychology application to not just real life, but I mean, if you are an athlete out there and you are playing a sport, take that deep breath, see what it does for you. And this isn't just with sports, but this is with life. Put yourself in tough situations a lot. People always say, oh, put yourself in tough situations. That's how you grow. It's not how you grow, it's how you get confident. It's not necessarily, okay, I'm doing better because I'm in this situation that I'm mentally struggling in. I'm not a believer in that. I think sometimes when you shoot above where people are, I mean, failure is how you get better, but mentally failing doesn't always correlate to success because you're not able to understand what you're physically doing wrong if you're mentally not present and you're not able to shape yourself in a positive way. If you're not able to feel it and see it. I know I'm going off on another tangent, but if you're going to take anything from this, I'd say practice the reset, practice the breath. It's done wonders, not just for my years as an athlete, but in life.
I agree. And to get yourself out of the comfort zone. And I did stand up comedy for like a year. I wasn't any good at it. I mean, even the crickets left. One of the things that I did was I would look in a mirror and just see my facial expression. That's the look on your face and what are you saying and how are people perceiving you?
I completely agree. It's methods. It's all methods. And when you were going to do a stand-up comedy act, right? The first one's tough. I've never done stand-up, but I can imagine how scary it is when you're trying to warm people up for the first time and you're trying to get a chuckle or two to kind of build that confidence, take that next step forward. I can only imagine. I commend you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. What I've always found, and I find this with public speaking as well, is that the bigger the audience, the easier it is. Because not only do you have a wider range of intelligence generally, you also have a wider range of humor. There's kind of like a peer pressure thing, especially with humor. If you crack a one-liner and somebody laughs and the person next to them doesn't laugh, they feel left out. So they're going to laugh just because. So it's this whole peer pressure thing. If you ever go to a comedy show, somebody will tell a joke that maybe not everyone gets, and you'll hear like four laughs, and then a second later, you'll hear everyone else laugh because they don't want to miss the joke.
I wouldn't have even thought of that. That's genius. But that's so true. The delayed burn of the second laugh.
And when you do public speaking and you say, hey, does anybody have any questions? There's that delay, and then somebody will kind of sheepishly put up that first hand, ask a question, and then all of a sudden, the rest of the floodgates open.
I like that a lot. You're so right. And I wouldn't have thought about that with more people. Because public speaking, you would think it'd be the other way around, but I've heard that being weird is really good if there's a lot of people listening. So I guess that kind of goes with that notion. Because if you're weird, you're really going to resonate with one or two people. And those one or two people are going to develop a much bigger connection than if you're just generic to everyone.
And I'm definitely weird, so at some point I resonate with somebody.
Ah, see, there's the stand-up comedy coming out. That's hysterical. I don't think you're weird, man. You're awesome. I think you're gonna have me on the floor here in a minute. You got all the one-liners. This is awesome. You got these written down?
I don't. It's all go with the flow. And that was one of my problems when I did comedy was I never wrote anything down. It was whatever I felt like doing that night. So no two bits were ever the same.
That's probably good though.
As I came to learn, you need to have the bits that you're good at, those 5 minute bits. And I just never wanted to write them down. I always wanted to kind of be like an impromptu thing. And when it comes to delivery, if I can tell you from going to a lot of comedy clubs and seeing a lot of the same guys, that you could go to them and you could see them and it would be word for word one week, the next week until they got it down. And I just never did that. I just went more by feel of the audience.
One thing that's interesting that I don't think a lot of people realize with that is when you're telling either jokes or if you have a routine, you can kind of steal the same jokes, the same routine because it's the first time your audience has heard it. Because you could say the same joke, the same thing over and over and over and reuse material. And to you, it's boring, but it's interesting because you're like, okay, I want to mix it up, but it makes people laugh every time. And you have to tell it like it's the first time you're saying it every time. And that's what I find unique about comedy.
It is definitely unique, but we need to get back to you because people are tuning in to listen to you and not to me.
Oh, you too. Come on, it's your podcast.
When was the first time that you said, you know what, I could play lacrosse in college and get an education with it?
I never realized that I could do it. It's always been a okay, next hill to climb mentality. Where when I was in middle school, the one thing I wanted was to play varsity my freshman year of high school. Then I did that and I was like, okay, what's next? I want to be a starter. Okay, what's next? Oh, well, I should probably go play in college. What do I enjoy? What do I want to do after lacrosse? I want to be in finance. I love it. Okay. How do I put myself in the best position to be in college and find a school that is a great school that I love with a really good culture and an enjoyable experience? And when I say enjoyable experience, I don't mean party every weekend. I mean really genuine people that bring fulfillment and somewhere I could form connections with high quality people that I have fun with, that are enjoyable, make me laugh every day. Kind of like you, Rob. Then eventually in college, I was like, okay, well, I guess I want to start, I want to play. Then it was, I want to be the best version of myself as a human, and I want to get everything I can out of my career. I blew out my knee in my senior year right before the season, and I was kind of just like laying on my back in the field, and I knew my knee was crushed. I knew it was done, and I was like, I'm not done. I said it to myself then, and I'm getting chills. And that was really a year for me that I was coming in, I was a dominant starter. I finally did what I needed to do to come into my own in my career. Then I got hurt in preseason in our blue white scrimmage. Having that happen is so common in sports, especially contact sports. You hear about it every day. And you see a lot of athletes get hurt, and a lot of times they're in pain, but it's not the pain of, okay, I'm physically in pain. This sucks. My leg's going the wrong way. It's a, oh my God, it happened to me. Am I done? And I asked myself that question. My answer was no. Life gave me lemons. I didn't make lemonade. I ate every single lemon it gave me. And I did everything I could in recovery, got back a month before I was projected to get back because of how quickly I did physically everything I was capable of doing. I was doing PT way before I was allowed to do it. I had weights in my room when I was hurt, lifting weights when I probably shouldn't have been lifting weights. I was doing everything that probably increased my re-tear rate, but I did not care. The only thing I wanted to do was play. I kind of had a realization, and I think everyone at a certain point in their life, people kind of get punched in the face at points. And for me, I wish I got punched in the face. It wasn't just that. I had a death in the family and a lot of other things that were kind of stacking on top of each other. Grades were garbage because I couldn't get out of bed to go to class. Just not like, woe is me, can't get out of bed. I wasn't allowed to get out of bed for recovery reasons. And this was pre-COVID and everything. So class was class. So it was tough. People always talk about how college can be the best time in people's lives and really make the most of it and all of that. But I mean, that was the worst time of my life, definitively. Everything I had worked for years. And it was a potential loss of identity. And it was a loss of the old Alex. And I came into my own in that point, and I realized, okay, I'm on my back in bed, can't do anything. I'm going to grad school here, and I'm going to play, and I'm going to do it right. And this was before we knew we were even going D1. So I called our coach at the time, Coach Panos, and I called him, and I said, Coach, I'm not fucking done. If I'm not coming back this year, I'm playing next year. I don't care what I need to do it, I'm doing it. And he was excited to hear that. He offered me to come back so I could get my master's, help me out with that. And he's like, look, finish up school, do your thing, come get your master's. I got lucky because I got hurt really early in preseason. And a lot of the stuff that happened in my knee, they didn't need to operate on. And it was a ton of partial tears and one complete tear, but the way it was laying, it was able to heal itself if I locked it up. If they operated on it, I think it would have taken a little bit more time, but it was where my MCL tore. It was completely gone, and it was in a part where there happened to have been more blood supply. When they took a look at my ACL, apparently I've previously torn that, and that just randomly healed itself. I don't know how that happened. And they said that it's old, and it was probably from high school, and I didn't know it. The human body's crazy. And it was also partially torn again. And they're like, well, it healed the first time when it was torn. They could have just been trying to make me feel better. I don't know. But as I said, mentality is huge. So his MCL was completely gone. ACL was partial, whole lot of scar tissue. And that's probably why my knee hurt all the time before it tore. And it was a contact injury. I wasn't just like standing around and it just randomly went, but someone rolled up on me and like went a direction to the side it's not supposed to. It was a teammate, love the kid to death, still talk to him. Really, really good friend of mine. So can't hate the kid. I've accidentally hurt people in my time. So I think it was a completely torn meniscus, but they said it was laying correctly too. So it didn't need to be operated on, which is crazy. I don't understand how I was able to do this. I dodged so many bullets and got so unbelievably lucky. And then I saw what was in front of me. I saw what I needed to do to get back. And then I ended up having an extremely fast recovery for what happened. They said that if I lost a little bit of weight, I wasn't like chunky or anything, but I was a big dude. I was a face-off guy, lost like 25 pounds. Some of it was probably muscle in my legs. My left leg was small the whole season. It was hilarious. Out here with one peg leg, but I made it work. And I didn't wear a knee brace because I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of guys out there that see knee braces and will mess with you. And I didn't want to have to deal with that. So got back my first game that I played back. I wasn't really supposed to play it. It was a preseason game, but I knew if I didn't play that game, I wouldn't have been able to start the very first game of the year. And I think I went over 50% that game for my first game back, which made no sense because I took 0 face-offs going into that game. I definitely shouldn't have played it. And then I went in and I had the best season of my career after the worst thing that's ever happened in my life. After having that mental awakening, you don't realize what you're physically capable of until you have nothing to lose.
One thing I am wondering is what was it like just to get on the field for that first time?
I cried tears of joy. I watched every practice from the sidelines. My coach told me that I didn't have to be there. Whenever we split into positional groups, I spent my time with my boys. I was the older guy at the time helping mentor younger dudes coming up on the team, Jonathan Stansel and a few other guys, really, really good friends of mine. I still talk to Stansel a lot. I mean, that's why I name drop him. He's still playing ball, actually. That's another reason. So, really, really good friend. I really cared about those guys a lot. I still do. And I love those guys, man. And that was why I was there. When I didn't have to be, it wasn't all about, oh, I can't play. Boo hoo. It's, I want to see my boys win. If I physically can't contribute as a player with my body and putting myself on the line, I'm going to teach these guys my moves. I'm going to teach them everything that I do. And even when I was in grad school, that was what I spent a lot of time doing that year because we were transitioning to Division One. Great team was a Lenore Rhine, a Wingate, a University of Tampa, and then it gets stepped up to the next year. We're playing Duke, we're playing Navy, we're playing really, really high caliber programs, and it's just a different level. It's crazy to see the difference. And one thing that was interesting about the transition is you can't hide. If there's any small thing that you're not as good at least this is with lacrosse and with face-offs, if you have any deficiency, they're able to take advantage of it. My deficiency is I was slow to exit, and I was a big dude, and in Division Two, I never got punished for it because I was bigger and they couldn't move me. And when I went into play Division One ball, which was really fun, is everyone's big, and if they're not big, they can still move you. It's fun. So I was no longer exceptional. I was par, and any individual thing that I didn't do well, I needed to get really good really quickly. And I didn't really come into my own at that level until later on in the season. But I would say that was a unique experience. And that extra year for me was more, okay, how do I pass the torch? We're playing at a new level. We're not going to go over 500. We're going to win a few games here or there. We're going to compete against some really good teams, and we're going to try to come together and establish a culture for this program going forward.
I love the idea of paying it forward because that's just not true in athletics. That's true in life as well, where there's always that opportunity to share that knowledge. And I believe just in general in life, all of us should be willing to do and do more of.
I completely agree. And a lot of knowledge that makes people successful. There's a lot of people that gatekeep a lot of that knowledge and they'll hide it behind a course or they'll hide it behind really high end coaching. Oh, you have to pay for this camp. But I've never really agreed with gatekeeping information like that. And especially if it's things that can help people live a better life or have a more fulfilling career on or off the field. I think information and being able to be set or being able to set yourself up and being able to work for something you love is something that everyone should have the ability to do. And I mean, some things are unrealistic, right? Like I get it. I'm not going to be a professional water polo player, right? As much as I try for the rest of my life, I'm never going to play professional water polo. But I'm a big dude. I've got small legs and a big torso, and I'm not out here playing water polo. I swim, but not like that. I'm just not built for it. But having knowledge and finding your passion and following your passion needs to be something at the forefront of anybody's life, and the ability to find something that they're passionate about and chase it. That's really where real fulfillment comes from. And gatekeeping fulfillment is something that I'm not a believer in.
I agree with that. And one of the reasons I started this podcast was there are so many people out there who are always asked about their famous relative. Like, I'm sure you get sick about answering questions about your brother, but it's like, hey, these people have a life too. They're successful. Why aren't their stories told? Well, shoot, I want to go tell them.
That's an interesting perspective. I don't really get tired of it. I don't really mind. It's not something that really bothers me because I just kind of get it and it's normal for me. Because people will ask me a lot, oh, what's it like this? And it's like, I don't know. He's my brother. I grew up with him. I don't know what to tell you. He's a phenomenal older brother. As anybody with an older brother that you ask, hey, how's this guy? Like, he's an amazing brother. So what? He has a cool job, right? A lot of people want his job. It's cool, but that doesn't impact how good of a person he is. He's just a cool dude with a cool job.
I love that answer and the fact that not once did you mention the sport or where he played or anything like that. Because to you, he's just Pete, and there's nothing more than that. That's just who he is.
This is baseball, but these are core family memories. It would be raining outside. And if there was like a torrential downpour, you know how Florida is, my folks would drive us down the street to the Little League field and we would quote unquote practice sliding. Early, it would be both my parents and my brother and I just roll around in dirt and mud. That's it. It's not deeper than that. It's really simple. I think sometimes people complicate things and complicate life, and things are a lot more than what they are, but just roll around in mud. It's who we are. So what? He can put a stick on a ball and have the ball go far. He's a phenomenal person.
I know you have to go soon, and one thing I want to get in is you just started up a LinkedIn newsletter called Business Secrets. Would you mind telling people a little bit more about what it is, where they can find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, you could just look up Alex Alonso or Business Secrets on LinkedIn. Give me a ping. I answer DMs on there. And I mentioned earlier where I talked about gatekeeping information and how it's really important to be able to learn from others' experiences. Essentially, what the newsletter is I interview business founders or people with really cool ideas in the entrepreneurial space. And then I create a very simple bulleted list. It's 3 points and a quote of what they learned the hard way when starting or running their business. And those points are super easy to digest. It's a 30-second read. I send it out weekly, and it's an amazing opportunity to learn from very high achieving individuals in the business space. And it's not just, okay, how do I make my business succeed? It's also, how do I live the life I want? And hearing a perspective of people that you would think are living the best life in the world, right? Hearing what they have to say is really valuable to shaping where you want to be at the end of your life.
Who's somebody you want to get for your business secrets that you haven't gotten yet?
It's interesting finding people for it. It's surprising how, and Rob, I'm sure you've experienced something similar with this, how open people are to sharing information and sharing things they've learned. And especially in the entrepreneur CEO space, you'd expect a lot of these people to be super private, not want to talk or anything. Yeah, there's some of that, and that's fine. A lot of these people, it's okay, I'm in cybersecurity, I'm not online. Honestly, I get that. So I don't have an individual that I'm looking for. However, there are a ton of people in the local Tampa area, and I'm looking to potentially expand into other cities that share some really good insights. And I'm always open to have a conversation with anybody. It's fun stuff.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me take a breath and then give you an answer on that one. 10 years. I'm a pretty young fella, so by then I'll be in my mid 30s. Man, probably still here in sunny Tampa and putting a life together where hopefully everything would be going really well with my financial planning practice, with my business. And I recently moved in with my partner, so things are probably going to be progressing from there with her. I'm looking to just kind of enjoy life. One thing I've learned from a lot of the people I've spoken with and being able to hear their insights, it really shapes how you view life a lot. One thing that for the next 10 years that I value heavily is travel, being able to get the most out of life with the people around me, and just being able to meet really cool, fun people and just enjoy being on this big blue dot floating around in space.
When it comes to travel, let's say 3 places in the world you want to get to. What are those 3 places for you?
I want to go to a Formula One race somewhere. I'm a massive motorsports guy, sim rig and all of that. I had to take it all down for this call, but I'd want to see maybe one of the races over in Germany or Monaco. Monaco isn't as good of a race generally just because of the track layout, but I was there when I was a little younger and it's just drop dead gorgeous. So Monaco's definitely a check. I've never been to Paris. Pete was there recently. He said it's phenomenal. He said we need to go. So we might have to check that out as a family. And I want to go back to Alaska. I want to have my own fishing experience up there.
If you go back to Alaska, you gotta at least go watch the surfing. I don't know if you know who Tony Hawk is, the famous skateboarder, but his brother, Steve Hawk, is a surfer and says off the coast of Alaska is the best surfing in the US.
Wow, that would be very cold. I can't imagine you'd have to be all wetsuited up for that. And oh man, I would love to watch, but I don't know if I'd get in the water personally. I'm born and raised Floridian, so I can play in the snow and I can smash helmets into each other in the snow, but I don't prefer to make snow angels when I don't have a helmet on. So
And you mentioned the Formula One race in Monaco. I had Garrett Green on a few months ago who actually went to that and said it was the coolest race he'd ever been to.
oh wow. That whole principality, being able to see that would be fantastic. I would love it. That would be so much fun. That'd be an amazing time.
Alex, I want to thank you so much for coming on the I Play 2 podcast today and talking about your lacrosse career, your mindset, all the great stories that you have with your brother. Thank you so much. Continued success in the financial world. Take care, man.
Thank you. I hope you have a good one. It was really nice speaking with you.